Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 145, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast streaming anywhere you listen to your podcasts with the videos on YouTube. And we got one hell of a show. We will chat about UFC action, recap UFC Perth, preview this weekend's major numbered event in Newark, New Jersey, chat PFL Sioux Falls. But before we jump in, my goodness, it is Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de Drinko for some of y'all. Sports action in full force, baseball. My Colorado Avalanche handling business in the NHL playoffs as they are in round 2 against the Minnesota Wild. Really hopeful for them winning another Stanley Cup. NBA playoffs actually been pretty chaotic in the first round as some higher seeds have been upset, which doesn't normally happen in the NBA. And my Los Angeles Angels absolutely suck, so there's that to say, but Mike Trout is healthy. That's all we care about these days. But yeah, really excited about the Avs. The weather here today, it was 78 degrees, absolutely fantastic spring. Hasn't been too hot. But boy, I am already in so much anticipation of this weekend's UFC card, so we'll get in and jump right into it. Some fights that have been announced. These will be on June 27th. We have Daniil Donchenko taking on Andreas Gustafsson. We have Rafael Fiziev taking on Manuel Torres. Absolute scrap. We have Nazim Sadikov taking on Mathus Camillo. And Rizvan Kuniev taking on Tyrell Fortune. Then we have some events added to UFC 329. Zachary Reese taking on Ryan Gandra. Cody Djorden and Ode Osborne. As well as Benoit Saint-Denis and Paddy Pimblett. Massive, massive fight for Paddy Pimblett in his return. And Cody Djorden staying active in the flyweight division. We had PFL Sioux Falls last weekend. I didn't watch these fights, but it seemed like a solid card. I thought it had potential, but a lot of the big names winning. We had Logan Storley with a unanimous decision over Florim Zendelli. We had Gadzi Rabadanov with a unanimous decision over Alex Chizov. I figured Gadzi would finish him. Simeon Powell with a round 3 TKO over Emiliano Sordi. Sergey Bilistini with a round 3 TKO over Henan Fajeda. Henan was the underdog. I guess they were right. I thought Fajeda would win. We had Magomedov with a split decision victory over Leandro Hugo. I'm sure he just grappled the shit out of Leandro. Barely won a split decision. How about former UFCer Talia Santos with a round 1 knockout over Yan Kuhi? And then we had Maxwell Dayantu Nana with a unanimous decision over former ex-UFCer Carl Williams. And this past Saturday was also Rough 68 here in Phoenix. Dana White Contender Series hopeful. The next guy in the Sean O'Malley Red Hot camp. You have Sean O'Malley, Tommy McMillan, now Ezra Elliott winning the title in dominant fashion with a round 1 TKO over Ashton Canaglia. And Red Hawk Academy, I think they had 7 or 8 fighters in the card, majority of them winning. So they're staying hot up in the Northern Valley. But let's talk about UFC Perth. All right day with pick'ems. I went 8-5 on my picks. So overall, 884 wins, 434 losses, 13 no contests and draws. On the year, 104 wins, 44 losses, 2 no contests and draws. So still quite a bit above the doubling up the losses. To recap this card, I watched it early Saturday morning, but the crowd was loud and rowdy. They showed up in prime time in Perth. If you saw the beer snake they had, it was out of control. Aussies do it differently. But there was a lot of grappling to start this card. I didn't expect the Gaziev fight to be the best fight of the night by any means. But a lot of dominance here, or early finishes when it went that way. But the Aussies went 8-4 on the night, so solid night for them. I am recapping this a 6 out of 10. I did preview it a 6 out of 10. There were some good fights we did not break down. We had Cody Still with a round 1 submission via inverted heel hook over Dom Marfan. I mean, absolutely brilliant performance by Cody Still. He's going to be a problem. We had Wes Schultz with a round 3 submission via guillotine choke over Ben Johnston. Kind of a fight-saving submission attempt. We had Junior Tafa with a round 1 knockout over Kevin Christian. And Marwan Rahiki with a round 1 knockout over Ollie Schmid. Boy, is Mr. Marwan Rahiki a fun fighter to watch. But let's kick this off. We had previewed 2 prelim fights. We had Jonathan Micallef with a split decision victory over Themba Gorimbo. And much like I expected, this fight was a bit messy and chaotic. I mean, both men clearly wanted to get takedowns and have control time to steal rounds and tire their opponents out. To start the fight, Themba was having success striking, and he was in on a takedown, but Jonathan kept his cool and hung in there. Jonathan battled up against the cage in the clinch, but never did much with it as Themba eventually reversed the positioning, but Jonathan got a takedown after they exchanged some knees in the clinch back and forth. Jonathan then had a spurt of ground and pound at the end of the round and finished the fight in control, which I did think gave him a slight edge for a round 1 victory to set up round 2. And the pace in round 1 was really high. Both men were slowed from that pace, but Themba was the aggressor in round 2. He got a takedown, had some good control time in the round, and even got Jonathan's back with about a minute left. And this set up a winner-takes-all round 3. Well, in the final round of this high-paced fight, they're both going after it. A few strikes here and there, but Jonathan seemed like the fresher fighter at this point in the fight. Jonathan also landed the cleaner strikes, had good striking defense, and Themba was just kind of throwing to the wind, not very technical, didn't have good striking defense, and that cost him. Now, at this point, Themba is 35 years old. This is a pretty big detrimental loss for him. He's basically now trying to survive the UFC. And Jonathan's rolling at only 27 years old. He has plenty of big up-and-coming fights for him. Now, statistically, Jonathan landed 83 total strikes, 55 of them significant, with a takedown in 4 attempts, a reversal, and 3 minutes and 26 seconds of control time. Themba landed 74 total, 39 of them significant, so 4 less total, 16 less significant. He had 2 takedowns in 5 attempts and 5 minutes and 25 seconds of control time. Majority of that in round 2, the round he won. And both men didn't have a ton of success with takedowns. They were pretty sloppy with it. But Jonathan extends that winning streak to 5. He's 4-0 in the UFC. And Themba extends his losing streak to 3. He's an even 3-3 since 2024. So what's next? Well, I'd love to see 2 young, promising fighters. How about Jonathan and Sam Patterson? And for Themba, he could fight Max Griffin. Moving on, we had Jacob Malkoun with a unanimous decision over Gerald Meerschaert. And Gerald actually came in, was 4 pounds away from making weight. I felt like it showed in his performance. I'm not sure if he was struggling or just didn't want to make weight. But this was just depressing. I mean, Jacob went back to fighting like the Jacob Malkoun that got cut from the UFC. He barely escaped this fight against a slow and slugging GM3. Jacob defeated Andre Petrosky by round 2 TKO, but now he damn near lost to a almost 39-year-old GM3, and that's how he does. That's just Jacob Malkoun for you. But round 1, Jacob went for a takedown. He got one, but Gerald was able to reverse him and try for a submission, and he pretty much laid on him for the rest of the round. Again, Jacob started the fight striking so well. Why he went for the takedown, I'm not too sure, but it cost him round 1. Because GM3, all he did was lay on him, no ground and pound, no submissions. I mean, it was almost debatable that you could give Jacob the round because Jacob had him rocked before he tried for that takedown. He should have avoided that takedown, but it is what it is. Round 2, Jacob doubled his output, did a lot more than Gerald did, and was wearing GM3 down. Again, Gerald, although he's still in his 30s, looks like he's fighting at 41. I think some of those, just all those fights he's had are catching up to him. But Gerald pulled guard about the 2-minute mark, and I mean, it was brutal to watch. Gerald just didn't seem like he wanted to be there, so now it's 1-1, winner takes all round 3. And this was a pretty close round as well, but Jacob was doing work on the fight to start, but about halfway in, Gerald just started slinging, trying to go for it. Malkoun got a few takedowns, had some ground and pound, but he was reversed again, but he did enough with his activity on the feet and getting those takedowns to win the fight. GM3 pretty much just ran out of time, as he did have a final submission attempt. I don't think he was going to get it, though. Statistically, Jacob landed 54 total strikes, 36 of them significant. He had 3 takedowns and 2 minutes and 17 seconds of control time. Gerald landed 53 total strikes, 32 of them significant. He had 3 submission attempts, 2 reversals, and 4 minutes and 23 seconds of control time, but he was 0 for 3 in takedown attempts. So Jacob extends his winning streak to 3. He's 3-1 since 2023. And Gerald extends his losing streak to 5. He may have fought for the last time unless the UFC gives him a farewell fight. So what's next? I think Jacob and Jungyeon Park would be a good fight. I've made a few matches with Jungyeon Park. I hope he gets a fight booked ASAP, whether it is or isn't Jacob. And Gerald, if he does get a opportunity to fight again with the UFC, maybe a rematch against Dustin Stoltzfus or a fight with Azamat Bakoev for a farewell fight, if that is the case, the road of choice they choose. Moving on to the main card, pretty much another farewell. A fight I got wrong as Louie Sutherland had a unanimous decision over Tuivasa. And it's a farewell to one of the more fun viral heavyweights, whether it's the Tuivasa, the knockouts, the comedy, the streaming that he does. But I mean, he was on a record-breaking losing streak, and it was a classic Thai fight fighting off his back. You know, he had some decent shots when the fight did stay standing. He even tried to offensively grapple. Louie ended up reversing him. It just seems like low IQ fighting to me. I thought Louie acted like a douchebag. I kind of hope he gets smoked in his next fight. All he really did was lay on Thai. He didn't do a lot of damage from the top or look for submissions. But Thai really got caught over swinging multiple times. He did have some chances, but that cost him in this fight. Statistically, Thai only landed 27 total strikes, 13 of them significant. Louie landed 111 total, but a lot of pitter-patter up top, only 21 of them significant. But he did get 5 takedowns in 11 attempts, so I guess you can credit Thai for some of that defense. He had 2 reversals and 11 minutes and 45 seconds of control time, so majority of the fight, plus 2 reversals. Again, why is Thai trying to grapple? Shake my head. But Louie now ends his 2-fight losing streak. He starts a new winning streak. He's 1-2 in the UFC. And Thai ends his career on a 7-fight losing streak, less than 3 years removed from fighting number 1 ranked Cyril Gahn. What a downfall. His last win was a round 2 knockout against Derek Lewis back in February of 2022. And I bet against Tai Tuivasa a lot. He proved me wrong quite a few times. But when you have that big a hole in the grappling, guys can just try to go for it. And that cost him his UFC career. So what's next for Louie Sutherland? I think Louie and Steven Asplin would be a fantastic fight. So let's make that matchup. Moving on. Another fight I got wrong. The fight of the night. Did not expect that. We had Brando Pericic with a round 2 TKO over Shamil Gaziev. And this fight, while it lasted, was basically Brando charging at Shamil, Shamil eating shots and dealing slower, heavy counters back. At one point in the second half of round 1, Shamil started landing some nice uppercuts and some big shots that actually had Brando rocked, but Brando was able to recover and continue to go straight at Shamil. I didn't expect this to be the most fun fight. It was a high-paced, chaotic warfare, kind of like the hell's his name? The crazy heavyweight fight we saw a couple weeks. He's now fighting on the White House card. I can't even remember his name right now, but it reminded me a little bit of that when it lasted. Shamil is hilarious because he reminds me of an angry Goomba in Mario, the little mushroom guys. Because every time he gets hit, his face just looks like an angry Goomba, and he gets angrier and angrier. But Brando, credit to him, much faster, looks solid for the most part. I'm excited to see what he does next. But Shamil definitely is just a slow, heavy-hitting, durable heavyweight. He'll be around, but his days in the rankings are behind him. Looking at the stats, Brando landed 100 total strikes, 89 of them significant with a knockdown. Shamil landed 51 total, 41 significant, so about half that. He had a takedown in 2 attempts with 3 minutes and 56 seconds of control time. So Brando now extends his winning streak to 5. He's 3-0 in the UFC. He enters the rankings at number 15. And Shamil extends that losing streak to 2. He's 2-3 since 2024 and exits the top 15. So what's next? Well, Brando called for Marcin Tybura. I obliged to that. He's available. A lot of the division's booked up. And for Shamil, I think a matchup with Kennedy and Shekwaku would be a fun one. That's the fight to make. Moving on. We had Steve Erceg with a unanimous decision over Tim Elliot. I saw a lot of people on the internet and a lot of MMA heavy, following people say that Tim was a good underdog play and that Steve's odds were way too lopsided. Well, I figured that the odds were pretty on point because as good as Tim is and how he fought recently, he really relies on getting takedowns and top control. And Steve is so good at getting back up when being taken down. And he's such a technical and quick striker. I figured he'd provide Tim problems unless Tim was able to make the fight ugly and more turn it into a brawl and maybe catch Steve with some of those wild, unorthodox attacks. Well, it took Steve about a round to figure out Tim's movement, figure out his style. But man, when he was landing, it was crisp and it stung Tim. Tim was just super aggressive coming forward and mixing in takedowns. He definitely had more volume to win round 1. But the rest of the fight, Steve more than doubled the volume of Tim because he was defending the takedowns well, put Tim on his back foot because he was very precise with his strikes, and they were starting to impact the veteran Tim Elliot. Well, by round 3, after landing a nice head kick, I thought Steve was going to get a finish in a dominant fight, but Tim's tough, man. He hung in there, he was game, he kept fighting to the end. Fantastic performance by Steve. He showcases he belongs in the top of the division, and Tim definitely near the end of his run as he nears 40 years old. It's hard to keep up with the quickness in this division when you're 40, man. Statistically, Tim landed 93 total strikes, 90 of them significant. He only had 2 takedowns in 11 attempts. Again, credit to Steve. Steve landed 136 total and significant strikes. He had 1 takedown in 3 attempts. So Steve now extends his winning streak to 2. He's 3-3 since 2024. He moves up 2 spots in the rankings to number 10. And Tim ends his 2-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He's 3-2 since 2023 and drops 1 spot to number 11. So what's next? I think Steve and Amir Albazi is the fight I want to see. That would be great. And for Tim, how about Joseph Morales? Unless he's booked soon, then maybe Alessandro Costa. Moving on to the co-main. We had Quillan Salkilld with a round 1 TKO over Beneil Dariush. Performance of the night, 100 G's to Salkilld. And this was a fight I got wrong. I mean, Quillan came out striking with heavy hands, and Benny went to the grappling well. He had success taking Salkilld down a few times, but Salkilld was able to get up against the cage and battle back up, And when he did, he was able to land a few clean shots that got Beneil out. I keep underestimating Salkilld, but much like Carlos, he packs a punch, and it makes his opponents nervous and skeptical with their strikes. That's what happened here in my opinion, as Benny has been finished a bunch and is definitely at the end of his run in the UFC. But Quillan now is a rocket ship. He's young. I don't think we need to rush him up in the very deep lightweight division. Looking at the stats, Beneil only landed 4 total and 3 significant strikes. He had 2 takedowns in 5 attempts and 2 minutes and 32 seconds of control time. And it only took Quillan 15 total strikes, 12 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedowns and had the knockdown. But Quillan now extends that winning streak to 12. 6-0 in the UFC. He enters the rankings at number 12. And Beneil extends his losing streak to 2. He is 1-4 since 2023. He drops 2 spots to number 14. So what's next? Beneil has been taking on a ton of killers. I would like to see him match up with someone like Musayev. That's the one I want to see. And for Quillan, he is now in the big leagues. I had him against Manuel Torres, but he just got booked. Majority of the division is booked up. So let's give him what he wants. He called for Mateusz Gamrot with most of the division booked up. If Gamrot wants to fight, let's make it happen. Then in the main event, golly, this was another fight I got wrong, but I'm not ashamed to say it. Carlos Prates is the closest thing we have to a modern-day Anderson Silva. Hands down, smoking cigarettes, don't give a shit, partying like a rock star. There was a video of him in Australia this weekend chugging bottles of Jack Daniels. This guy is an absolute beast. But Carlos has now fought 8 times in 2 years. 7 of them being a knockout or TKO finish. And now his impressive resume of fighters and former champions. He's that guy. Carlos has learned how to lengthen his cardio from his early days in the UFC. And not only empty his tank, I feel like he's truly prepared for championship rounds. He knows how to be aggressively measured, but I think this is a top 5 performance of the entire year. I have it behind Carlos Ulberg. Getting a finish with a torn knee is insane. Charles Oliveira's domination against Max Holloway, Yanni Kavanaugh's domination of Brandon Moreno, and Sean Strickland's victory over Anthony Hernandez. But this fight started out close. Jack was battling, but Carlos was clearly the pressure fighter the entire fight, and you could tell when he landed shots. Whether it was that lead leg kick, JDM was feeling them, and it seemed like by round 2, JDM was unsure of himself and he didn't want any part of those strikes landing. So JDM resorted to grappling. He got a takedown, but he wasn't able to control Carlos. From round 2 on, JDM continued to try to grapple, but Carlos kept gaining momentum and confidence, and he was just flowing in there. He didn't care. This was his fight, and JDM was living it. His hands were down low. He was precise. He was confident. He was powerful. That's what Prates put on display. And round 3, honestly, was a tough sight to see, especially JDM in Australia. He was miserably in pain. I think his lead leg was literally done. He was just trying to survive the fight. And we have not seen this side from Jack Della. He's usually so tough and so dominant. But you got to credit Carlos Prates. This guy is an absolute unit. Looking at the stats, Jack landed 53 total strikes, 41 of them significant. He had 2 takedowns in 5 attempts with 1 minute and 13 seconds of control time, so he didn't really have a ton of success. Carlos landed 104 total, 104 significant with 3 knockdowns. Pretty lopsided. So Carlos now extends his winning streak to 3. He's 7-1 since 2024. He moves up 3 spots to number 2. And Jack extends his losing streak to 2. He's an even 2-2 since 2024. He drops 3 spots to number 4. So what's next? I know Carlos wants the title next, but I think he'd have to wait too long with the matchup still not being official. Unless he leapfrogs everybody, but this seems like it's going to be Ian Machado. Gary, I don't know how you put Carlos ahead of him when Ian beat Carlos. So I'm going to say Carlos Prates, Michael Morales for the true number one contender next title shot. And that would be an awesome striker versus striker fight. And for Jack, I mean, it's hard to say anyone's going to fight this guy, but him and Kamaru Usman would be a ton of fun. We can't really bet on that. So maybe Leon Edwards. D-Rod said he might be booked against Leon Edwards. We haven't seen that official. So if that's the case, maybe someone like Mike Malott. But I would love to see him fight the former welterweight GOAT welterweight champion Leon Edwards or the welterweight stud Kamaru Usman. But yeah, Australia, a real showcase of talent. Carlos Prates, Quillan Salkilld, Steve Erceg, they're those dudes. Brando Pericic, a new guy in the heavyweight division. Solid card for early Saturday action unless you stayed up. But it's all about this weekend, UFC 328. The early prelims at 2 p.m. Pacific, prelims at 4, main card at 6, all on Paramount+. To preview this card, I mean, it's simple. We're breaking down every single fight. This card is absolutely stacked. New Jersey usually shows out. There honestly isn't a bad fight on this card. All 5 fights on the main card are stellar. 2 titles on the line, great matchmaking, assured violence is in store. I am previewing this an 8 out of 10. So let's kick it off. In the early prelims, we have Clayton Carpenter, 29 years old with an 8-2 record, taking on Jose Calzifer Ochoa, 25 years old with an 8-2-1 record. I mean, this is a fun fight to start the evening. Clayton is about to enter his prime at 29. He's coming off 2 losses against quality competition, and now he's kind of got his back against the wall and he has to prove himself as his time is now. The challenge is that he has a young stud who has shown his potential, but is still young and raw. He's only 25. I think Jose is going to be the aggressor and the better overall striker with faster hands, but Clayton's well-rounded. He could use Ochoa's aggressiveness against him and take him down like Asu Almabayev did against him last summer. Jose should be prepared. He's almost had a year off to improve his grappling defense and game plan and improve his strengths. Breaking this down, Clayton trains out of the MMA lab here in Phoenix. He's an LFA and Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is 3-2 in the UFC. 4 of his 8 wins are via submission. Now, Jose trains out of Shootbox Diego Lima. He's an LFA alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 1-2 in the UFC. 7 of his 8 wins are via knockout. That's crazy in the flyweight division. Now, I expect Clayton to look to get Jose down early and often. Jose has okay grappling defense, but has been an aggressive striker with powerful hands for the division. I wouldn't say he's the most technical striker. He's still so raw, but I expect to see the best version of a Jose with his time off. Now, Clayton really needs to find a way here. He's going to have to push a high pace, but Ochoa's game. So this is going to be a very fun, high-paced, high-intensity fight. For the sake of picking, I'm taking Jose Ochoa, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays possible. Moving on. We have Baisangur Hunter Susurkaev, 25 years old with an undefeated 11-0 record, taking on Djorden Shakur Santos, 28 years old with an 11-2 record. Now this is a fight between 2 chaotic, high-paced, and aggressive middleweights. Santos is still finding his way in the UFC, but Baisangur is thought of highly, and he's really steamrolled his competition. Susurkaev is definitely going to look to grapple and take down Santos, and Djorden is going to come forward. He's going to have wild, unorthodox attacks, some spinning attacks, and should give Baisangur opportunities. Breaking this one down, Baisangur trains out of Killcliff. He's a Fury FC and Contender Series alum. He's undefeated on an 11-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. 9 of his 11 wins are via knockout, and he has a 3.5-inch reach and a 5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Djorden trains out of American Top Team. He's a Titan FC, Thunder Fight, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 2-1 in the UFC. 4 of his 11 wins are via submission, 3 via knockout, so 7 of his 11 wins via finish. Now, Baisangur usually comes out at such a high pace. He's going to try to tire out Djorden, but there's a chance that Djorden could catch a wild shot late in the fight. But I really don't think that Santos stands a chance at defending takedowns early, and he has been has shown to gas out at the tail end of the fight. But he's a wild scrambler. He does do wild things. You never know. I expect this to be pure chaos. But I am taking Baisangur Susurkaev. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. Still in the early prelims, we have Pat Sabatini, 35 years old with a 21-5 record, taking on William Jaguar Gomez, 28 years old with a 15-3 record. Now, Pat has had an up and down UFC career, but he's on a roll right now and has strung together his best win streak on the base of amazing grappling and his improved striking. You know, he's still in his prime at 35. Another win would put him right in the mix in the top 15. William is an aggressive, long and lengthy fighter who has been in hard-fought fights and now is getting the stiffest test of his career before he hits his prime window. Breaking this one down, Pat has a black belt in BJJ and Tong Soo Do. He has a D1 wrestling background out of Rider University. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champ with 3 successful title defenses. He's also a Ring of Combat alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's 4-1 since 2023. 12 of his 21 wins are via submission, and 3 of his 5 losses are via knockout. Now, William trains out of the MMA Factory. He's a Cage Warriors and UAE Warriors alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 2-1 since 2024. Hasn't been very active. 7 of his 15 wins are via knockout, but he does have a 3-inch and a 5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, William has showcased that he can grapple and get takedowns of his own. But Pat is at a different level. I mean, he's a beast. Him and Sean Brady in that team. I mean, if he tries to do that, I think he will be playing to Pat's advantage. I expect William to try to throw a fair share of kicks and jabs to keep Pat at distance in this fight, and will use his length to his advantage. If Pat's recent fights are like what we expect, then Pat is going to look to get William down as soon as possible. But I am taking Pat Sabatini, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays. I think this is a close fight. Still in the early prelims, we have Roman Kopylov, 35 years old with a 14-5 record, taking on Marco Matuto Tullio, 31 years old with a 14-2 record. Pull up the odds real quick. So Baisangur is like a 700 favorite, Pat 200. So Marco is searching for a quality win in the UFC. He's in his prime window at 31. And after he got smoked by CLD, he now gets a proven vet in his prime, and he's looking to rebound and get back to his winning ways. I think this fight should be a striker's delight, and I'd be surprised if this fight went to the scorecards. Breaking this one down, Roman has a southpaw stance. He has the highest takedown defense percentage in middleweight history at 88.9%. He's a Fight Nights Global alum and former champion with 1 successful title defense. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is 2-3 since 2024. 12 of his 14 wins are via knockout. Now, Marco trains out of Shootbox Diego Lima. He's an LFA and Contender Series 2-time alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 3-1 in the UFC. 10 of his 14 wins are via knockout. Both of his losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, both men are clearly dangerous strikers. I think Roman has a kicking advantage, and I think that plays a big part in this fight. Roman has hung in there against Gregory Rodriguez and Paulo Costa of late. I mean, those are dudes. He should be able to come out and be more aggressive and fight his style of fight against Marco. Marco hasn't seen a third round since his Contender Series fight against Yusri Belgori, and I think he will fight to kill or be killed, especially coming off a TKO loss. For that reason, I'm taking the underdog, the dog's coming to eat. Ho ho! I'm taking Roman Kopylov. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Live odds right now, Roman's like a plus 150 or to 170 underdog. I like it. Moving on now in the prelims, we get Jim A10 Miller, 42 years old with a 38-19-1 record, taking on Jared Flash Gordon, 37 years old with a 21-8-1 record. So there's been news this week that Jim's son has actually defeated cancer. That's why he's been out for some time. You know, Jim has been battling Lyme's disease. Prayers to that family. Glad he beat it. Point is, he's going through a lot. Jim is about to be 43 years old. He hasn't fought in a year since he lost to Chase Hooper via unanimous decision. I'm honestly not too sure what to expect from Jim, but Gerald is a solid striker, trying to bounce back after a loss, and is going to go back and forth with Jim. And Jim always starts the fight hot in the first round. And I'm kind of curious if Jim loses, if he still wants to keep fighting. But breaking this down, Jim has some accolades. Jim has a southpaw stance. He has a black belt in BJJ. He has a D1 wrestling background out of Virginia Tech. He has the most wins in UFC history with 27. The most wins in lightweight history with 24. He's tied with Vanderlei Silva for second most wins in Zuffa, which includes the UFC, Pride, WEC, and Strikeforce history, which is 27 behind Donald Cerrone. He has the most bouts in UFC history with 46. The most bouts in lightweight history with 43. The second most finishes in UFC history with 19, only behind Charles Oliveira. He has the most finishes in UFC lightweight history with 17. He has the second most first-round finishes in UFC history with 12, behind Vitor Belfort. He has the second most submission wins in UFC history with 13, behind Charles Oliveira. He's tied with Charles Oliveira for most submission wins in lightweight history with 11. He's tied with Charles Oliveira for most submission attempts in UFC history at 51. He has the most submission attempts in UFC lightweight history at 48. The most fight time in lightweight history, 7 hours, 5 minutes, and 31 seconds. He has the most decision bouts in lightweight history with 20. He's tied with Diego Sanchez for third most decision bouts in UFC history with 21. He has the second most total strikes landed in UFC lightweight history, 1,741. He has the third most top position time in UFC lightweight history, 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 53 seconds. He's the only fighter to have fought on UFC 100, 200, and 300. I think he won all three of those too. Oh, he lost to Bobby Green or King Green in 300. He's tied with Andrei Arlovsky for third most losses in UFC history with 18. That's behind Clay Guida and Jeremy Stevens. He had the 2012 Fight of the Year against Joe Lozon in their first fight. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champ with one successful title defense. He's a Ring of Combat alum. He's on a one-fight losing streak and is 2-2 since 2024. 21 of his 38 wins are via submission, and he has a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, Gerald trains out of Kill Cliff FC. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champion. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-2-1 since 2023. 8 of his 21 wins are via knockout. 5 of his 8 losses are via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. And that's interesting because, like I said, Jim has always been dangerous in the first round. I expect this fight to not be any different. Gerald is coming off a TKO finish, so Jim does have a chance, but with time going by, it's harder and harder for me to pick Jim as he's almost 43. But he's a savvy striker. He has a high IQ. I think he's going to have a chance in this fight, but I think Gerald is going to try to make this ugly, trying to get into the clinch, do some dirty boxing up against the cage, and mix in takedowns. I think it'll either be a first-round finish by either man or a dominant decision by Jared Gordon. Because if Jared could get takedowns and control Jim, he will be in for a treat, but if it stays standing, anything is possible. But for the sake of picking, I'm taking Jared Gordon, but I am not putting this on any parlays. I think this is a coin flip fight. Moving on, we have Grant KGD Dawson, 32 years old with a 23-3-1 record, taking on Mentush Renbecki, 33 years old with a 20-4 record. I've said over and over since I've started this podcast, the lightweight division is super deep. This fight exemplifies that. You know, this is a battle between two men in their primes at 32 and 33, a lot of aspirations, and they're not even in the rankings. Mentush needs to get back on track after a big win against Micallef Orolbai a couple of years ago. Since then, he's had consecutive losses. And look at how good Micallef Orolbai has been since then and since he's moved up. Grant, I think 2 years ago-ish, was in the top 15, but then he got starched by Bobby Green, or King Green, but he's been solid since then. Mentush is a well-rounded fighter, but he lives off those loopy, heavy hands, while Grant lives through his offensive grappling. Breaking this down, Grant has a wrestling style. He trains out of American Top Team. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a Titan FC and Contender Series alum. He has the second highest control time percentage in UFC lightweight history at 69.7%. He has the highest top position percentage in lightweight history, 62.3%. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 3-1 since 2024. 13 of his 23 wins are via submission. All 3 of his losses are via knockout. But he does have a 6-inch reach and a 3.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Mentush trains out of American Top Team. His last 3 fights have been fight of the night. He's been showing up, he's showing out. And I'm sure these guys have trained together at some point in time. He's a Contender Series alum. He had the 2024 Fight of the Year against Micallef Orolbai. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is 1-3 since 2024. 9 of his 20 wins are via knockout, 7 via submission, so 16 of his 20 wins via finish. And 2 of his 4 losses are via knockout. Now, I expect both men to meet in the middle, and I think Mentush gets caught over swinging, so Grant could get an early takedown. And if he hasn't, that's going to really decide the fight. You know, Grant has a good length advantage. I think that's big in this fight, but I expect him to be able to hang as both men are hard hitters. They do get a little wild from time to time. They aren't the most crisp and technical, but I do think Grant gets those takedowns and stills around, especially if he gets it done early. If not, this will be another chaotic fight on the feet. But for the sake of picking, I'm taking Grant Dawson, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Again, 2 guys in the same gym. It's a big gym. They probably trained at some point. It's a little bit reminiscent of the Renato Moicano and Chris Duncan matchup. Now, still in the prelims, we have Joel El Fenomeno Alvarez, 33 years old with a 23-3 record, taking on Yaroslav Dynamo Amosov, 32 years old with a 29-1 record, and the number 14 next to his name. Now, Joel is actually an underdog here like plus 140, 150-ish range. And he's fighting a Bellator alum, but is fighting for the second time at welterweight. He's fought most of his career at lightweight. Both of these men are in their primes at 33 and 32. They're full of confidence right now. So I expect this to be a fantastic fight, potential fight of the night. Both men are well-rounded with serious power. The winner here is going to be thrown into the mix of a star-studded welterweight division. So I do think there's a ton on the line, because if you lose, you'll kind of be on the outside looking in. Breaking this down, Yoel has a brown belt in BJJ. He's an M1 alum. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 1-0 at welterweight. 17 of his 23 wins are via submission, 5 via knockout. So 22 of his 23 wins are via finish. That's what he does. And 2 of his 4 losses are via knockout. Now, Yaroslav has a Sambo style. He trains out of American Top Team. He won gold in the 2013, 14, 15, and 17 Combat Sambo World Championships. He's a Bellator alum and former champion with 1 successful title defense. He's also a Cage Fury alum. He's the first Ukrainian-born champ in Bellator history. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC. 12 of his 29 wins are via submission and 9 via knockout. So 21 of his 29 wins are via finish. Honestly, I really don't know what to expect for this fight. But if Jason Jackson can finish Yaroslav, I think Yoel is more capable. Alvarez can get overzealous in his fights and put himself in bad positions. But I think this fight stays standing for most of it. And I think Yoel is going to take advantage. Plus, a lot of the Bellator greats have come up and haven't fared well in the UFC. There is a chance Yaroslav takes down Yoel. He tries to do some submissions, but he wins rounds that way. But I think Yoel does so good at inflicting damage, he's going to find a ways with knees and uppercuts. For that reason, I'm taking the underdog. The dog's coming to eat. Hoo-hoo! But I'm avoiding this on any parlays. I can't wait for this fight. Should be on the main card. Let's see if the UFC has changed the order real quick. Fight week, they tend to change the order. Oh, this is still in the prelims. I would put this to start the main card over King Green and Jeremy Stevens, personally, but what do I know? So in the prelim headliner, we get Ataba, the Storm Gauthier, 24 years old with a 10-1 record, taking on Ozzy Diaz, 35 years old with a 10-3 record. Now, Ataba was tested in his last fight against Andrei Pulyaev, but he found a way to win, and now he has to fight Ozzy, who's coming off a big win, but really hasn't made a mark in the UFC. But he is a tough, gritty, and durable fighter. I don't think Ataba is going to be able to get him out quickly. Ataba does need octagon time, so I do think this will be a great matchup for him. Breaking it down, Ataba is a Titan FC and Contender Series alum. He's on a 9-fight winning streak, 5-0 in the UFC. 8 of his 10 wins are via knockout. Now, Ozzy trains out of King's MMA. He's a King of the Cage, Bellator, LFA alum, and former LFA champion. He's also a Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 3-1 since 2024. 7 of his 10 wins are via knockout. All 3 of his losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Ozzy's in his prime. Ataba is still a very raw fighter, but he is an absolute explosive athletic unit, and Ozzy isn't that. I think Ozzy is able to take shots, deliver some firepower back in this fight to Gauthier, but I'd be shocked if he got the win unless Ataba gasses himself early trying to get a finish, because he hasn't been finished yet. But I'm going to take Ataba Gauthier, but I'm not putting this on parlays because he's anywhere from a minus 1,100 to like 1,200 favorite. And that sets us up for the main card. We have King Green, 39 years old with a 34-17-1 record, taking on Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens, 39 years old with a 28-20 record. It's pretty wild to me that these two longtime veterans have never squared off before, so there is some intrigue here. Jeremy has been fighting with the UFC since 2007 and King since 2013. King Green was in Strikeforce before the UFC. Jeremy has only fought in the UFC twice since 2021, and he hasn't won in the UFC since February of 2018. He's had some success in bare knuckle, but he didn't really have any success in the PFL. Jeremy has showcased over and over how game he is and how durable he is. Even in his last UFC fight against Mason Jones, he hung in there. But King, although he's older, still is a fast and creative striker. Both men can mix in grappling, but tend to avoid it, and I doubt they do in this fight. They're going to stand on business, and that's why this is in the main card. Breaking it down, King has an orthodox stance with a brown belt in BJJ. He's an Affliction, King of the Cage alum and former champ and Strikeforce alum. He has the most significant strikes in UFC lightweight history at 1,950. The most total strikes landed in lightweight history, 2,191. He has the second highest significant strike differential in a UFC lightweight bout at plus 129 against Jim Miller. He has the third highest significant strike differential in UFC lightweight bout as well at plus 112 against Nasrat Haparist. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 3-2 since 2024. 12 of his 34 wins are via knockout, 9 via submission. So 21 of his 34 wins are via finish, and 6 of his 17 losses are via knockout. Now, Jeremy trains out of Alliance MMA. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He's a PFL alum. He's tied with Anderson Silva for the second most knockdowns in UFC history with 18. He has the second most knockdowns in featherweight history with 11. He's also tied with Clay Guida for the most losses in UFC history with 19. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's only 1-3 since 2022, and 19 of his 29 wins are via knockout. Now, if Jeremy can get this fight to go late, I think he could wear on King and find openings to put him in a bad spot and make this a dog fight. But King is going to want to stay in the open and be able to box Jeremy because I think he's going to have a massive speed advantage. If it's a fight from distance, Green is going to piece up Jeremy, and if Stevens can get in close, this is going to be a bloody war. Either way, I hope this is an absolute brawl, but I am taking King Green. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Sean Brady, 33 years old with an 18-2 record and the number 6 next to his name, taking on Joaquin Numansa Buckley, 32 years old with a 21-7 record and the number 9 next to his name. Now, Sean tries to bounce back after a brutal loss, after he climbed the ladder, much like he did when he lost to Bilal Muhammad back in 22, he bounced back. He then went on to defeat Kelvin Gastelum, Gilbert Burns, and Leon Edwards. This time he has to fight a fellow fighter in his prime at 32, who's also looking to bounce back. Joaquin has only fought older vets since 2023, so now he gets to test himself in a different way, and I think this is truly an opportunity to see how good he is. This is somewhat of a striker versus grappler showdown, but Buckley has some good grappling of his own. Breaking this down, Sean has an orthodox stance. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champ with 2 successful title defenses. He's also an LFA alum. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 3-1 since 2023. 6 of his 18 wins are via submission. Both of his losses are via knockout. Now, Joaquin trains out of Murcielago MMA. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He always shows up. He shows out. He's a Bellator and LFA alum. Debatably one of the most viral, insane knockouts ever. He had the 2020 knockout of the year against Impa Kasaganai. He's the 2024 Breakout Fighter of the Year. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 4-1 since 2024. 15 of his 21 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 7 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. But he does have a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, Buckley has had almost a year to work on his craft. Again, he is the best version of himself today. The problem is when he fought Kamaru Usman, he had success grappling him in his last fight, which was the big difference. I believe Sean is going to have success doing that as well. You know, Buckley has been a knockout machine in the UFC for the most part, and Sean has been finished early against Michael Morales, and he made Bilal Muhammad look like a great striker out of nowhere. So Buckley definitely has a chance to get a finish, especially early in this fight if he could defend takedowns. I do think this is a very close fight and is either a finish by Buckley or a close decision to Brady. But for the sake of picking, I am taking Sean Brady, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays possible. Joaquin Buckley can make it happen, and we really don't know how good of a striker Sean is. He might not be able to hang. Moving on, before the title fights, we get Alexander Drago Volkov. 37 years old with a 39-11 record and the number 2 next to his name. It's one of my favorite nicknames. Taking on Waldo Salsa Boy Cortez Acosta. 34 years old with a 17-2 record and the number 4 next to his name. Now, Waldo had a quick and steep climb up the heavyweight ladder, but he was checked against Sergey Pavlovich in summer of 2025. But he's been taking heads off ever since then, but a lot of them are against older, slower strikers. Now he gets Volkov, who is still fairly young for how long he's been a pro, and he has fucking 50 pro fights. But Volkov has been fighting at a very high level and debatably defeated a very good Sirlegan back in December of 2024. You know, many fighters have had to resort to grappling to try to defeat Volkov, and he picks them apart from distance. I think Volkov is going to be able to have his way at distance against Waldo, so Waldo's going to have to find a way to close distance and mix in his newly acquired grappling skills as well. Because Volkov is a very savvy, high veteran IQ, and I think he tries to fight Waldo like Sergey did and just come at him. Breaking this down, Alexander has a 3rd Dan black belt in Sushin Gen, a brown belt in Kaioshin Karate, and a black belt in BJJ. He's an M1 alum and former champ with 1 successful title defense. He's also a Bellator alum and former champ. He has the 2nd most significant strikes landed in UFC heavyweight history, 1,138. The 3rd most total strikes landed in UFC heavyweight history, 1,584. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 4-1 since 2023. 24 of his 39 wins are via knockout, and he has a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Waldo is a rough Bellator LFA alum and former champ and Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's 7-1 since 2024. He's been one of the more active fighters in the UFC. 8 fights in 2 years is insane. He's tied for the most bouts in a calendar year in UFC history with 5 last year. And 9 of his 17 wins are via knockout. Now, Waldo is a solid fighter, don't get me wrong. I think his most impressive win of late was against Ante Della. But what's got him to where he is his activity and his good game planning to exposing his opponent's weaknesses. I've honestly never been super high on him. I've kind of been waiting for him to be exposed. I think we will see that in this fight, unless he's somehow able to take Volkov down and hold him there, but I don't think that's going to happen. For that reason, I'm taking Drago, taking Alexander Volkov. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Now let's talk title fights. Phenom versus Phenom, 24 years old versus 26 years old. we have Joshua the Fearless Van, 24 years old with a 16-2 record, taking on Tatsuro the Best Tyra, 26 years old with an 18-1 record, and the number 3 next to his name. What a fantastic showdown this is. We get two young phenom prospects who have taken the UFC by storm in much different ways. Joshua has showcased his boxing skills and great takedown defense. He hasn't had many finishes since he's been in the UFC, but he's only 24, almost 25 years old. Now, Tatsuro has showcased amazing MMA grappling and BJJ skills. He's a solid striker as well. I think he has more tools in the toolbox, and that's why he's the betting favorite at a young 26 years of age. Now, Joshua got the belt in a weird way, and now he gets a chance at defending it, but I expect these two to have more fights in the future as the flyweight division is blossoming with young talent, but these two are the cream of the crop and are only going to get better once they fight and enter their primes. But breaking this down, Joshua has a blue belt in BJJ. He's a Fury FC alum and former champ. He's the second youngest champion in UFC history, 24 years old and 57 days. He's the first Burmese-born champion in UFC history, the first Asia-born male in UFC history, the first UFC champion born in the 2000s. He had the fastest knockout in the UFC flyweight title fight, although I don't really want to consider it that, 26 seconds against Pantoja, which was also the third fastest knockout in flyweight history. He has the highest significant strikes landed in flyweight history at 1,099 behind Brandon Moreno. He has the second highest significant strike accuracy in UFC flyweight history at 56.8% behind Demetrius Johnson. He had the 2025 Fight of the Year against Brandon Royval, which gave him the 2025 Breakout Fighter of the Year. He's on a 6-fight winning streak and is 7-1 since 2024, and 8 of his 16 wins are via knockout. This is why looking at the belt standings is dumb, because Tatsuro only has a purple belt in BJJ, but he has crafted to be at least a black belt, but he's not working in the gi. 2 of his last 4 fights have been Fight of the Night or Performance of the Night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's the first fighter born in the 2000s to win a UFC main event. He has the second most control time percentage in flyweight history at 52.1. The second most top position percentage in flyweight history at 46.4. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's 3-1 since 2024. 8 of his 18 wins are via submission, 6 via knockout, so 14 of his 18 wins via finish. And he has a 5-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch leg reach advantage. Now, there really isn't a playbook on how to defeat Joshua, as his only loss was in his 4th UFC fight and in his first year of the UFC, because he's really, really active. And in that fight, Charles Johnson was able to stand and strike with him and caught him on a counter strike. You know, he's faced very high-class strikers such as Brandon Royval, but hasn't been bested, and we haven't seen him taken down and controlled. Ray Suyara tried 21 times, but only got 4 takedowns, and with those 4 had under 4 minutes of control time. And we really didn't get to see the Pantoja fight shake out. I think we would have really seen how good he is with that ground defense in that fight. Now, Tatsuro has only lost to Brandon Royval, but it was a very close fight. Brandon did what he does. He just poured on so much volume with his striking, got a couple takedowns of his own, and defended takedowns well enough to steal the rounds. You know, Joshua very well could defend most of the takedowns and box Tatsuro up like he has most of his opponents. But this is a 5-round fight, and I think Tatsuro is going to test that and not only take him down, but get into high control positions such as body locks, take his back quickly. And we just haven't seen Joshua there against high-level grapplers like Tyra. Tatsuro destroyed Brandon while standing, but I don't think he'll be able to do that against Van, who is so confident. And when I mean Brandon, I mean Brandon Moreno, not Brandon Royval. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Van, who is confident, and I think he's going to trust his skills and he's going to make it a fight. I don't think Tatsuro wants that, so he's going to look for those takedown attempts, but I think he has success there. For that reason, I am taking Tatsuro Taira. Yes, I'm happy. I am putting him on my parlay. We're marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. I can't wait for this card and this fight. Speaking of can't wait, we get Khamzat Borz Chimaev, 32 years old with an undefeated 15-0 record, taking on Sean Strickland, 35 years old with a 30-7 record and the number 3 next to his name. Now this fight has a ton of hype. It's deservedly so. I think it won't live up to the hype because I think Khamzat does what Khamzat does and either wins like he did against DDP or gets a round 1 or 2 submission. Much like the Van fight, it's going to come down to if Sean could defend takedowns, and I'm sure he can, as he's neutralized Anthony Hernandez, but he had Anthony on his back foot the entire fight, and he only got to shoot 1 takedown. You know, DDP had success taking Sean down, but he didn't keep him down. Khamzat, I believe, is at a higher level than them with his offensive grappling and his aggression, but if Sean can survive the first 2 rounds, does this get interesting? You know, Khamzat did well in a 5-round fight when he defeated DDP for the title, but he had so much success taking him down and laying on top of him, he didn't have to exert a lot of energy. We saw him slow down against Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, so if Sean gets to round 3, I do think it factors a lot into the fight and maybe potentially swings the pendulum his way, but he's going to have to get back up. He'll pour so much volume on Khamzat the rest of the fight. I'm not sure if Khamzat's going to be able to keep up unless he gets a finish of his own. Breaking this down, Khamzat has a black belt in BJJ. He has a freestyle wrestling background as he was wrestling for the Swedish national team. He's a Brave alum. He's the first Chechen-born fighter to win a UFC championship. 7 of his 9 UFC fights have been performance of the night or fight of the night. He shows up, he shows out. He has a record for fastest consecutive wins in modern UFC history at 10 days. He has the record for quickest 3-fight win streak in modern UFC history at 66 days, which is good because since then he's not been active at all. He has the second most control time in a UFC fight, 21 minutes and 40 seconds against DDP. Second most takedowns landed in a UFC middleweight fight, 12 against DDP. He holds wins over 3 former champions, Kamaru Usman, Robert Whittaker, and DDP. I think the Robert Whittaker fight was the most impressive to me. He has the most total strikes landed in a UFC fight, 529 against DDP. Most total ground strikes landed in a fight, 517 also against DDP. And most total head strikes, 411 against DDP. And even as the second most total strikes attempted in a UFC fight, 567 against DDP. But a lot of those were non-damaging pitter-patter in top control and in the crucifix. He had the 2022 Fight of the Year against Gilbert Burns. That was an absolute banger. He's the 2020 Newcomer of the Year. Had the 2024 Submission of the Year against Robert Whittaker. Messed up his jaw. Like smashed his teeth in. He's undefeated on a 15-fight winning streak. 9-0 in the UFC. 6 of his 15 wins are via knockout. 6 via submission. So 12 of his 15 wins via finish. Now, Sean has an orthodox stance. He trains out of Extreme Couture. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a King of the Cage alum and former champ with 5 successful title defenses. He's a former middleweight champion. 4 of his last 6 fights have been performance of the night or fight of the night. He shows up, he shows out. He has the 3rd lowest bottom position percentage in middleweight history at .88. He has the most significant strikes landed in middleweight history, 1,575. He has the second most significant strikes landed in UFC history, all weight classes, 2,307. He has the third most strikes landed per minute in middleweight history at 6.33. He has the longest average fight time in middleweight history, 17 minutes, 47 seconds. He has the most significant strikes attempted in a middleweight bout, 428 against Uriah Hall. He has the third most significant strikes attempted in a middleweight bout, 400 against Jared Cannonier. The most significant strikes attempted in UFC light heavyweight bout, 405 against Nasruddin Imavov. The most total strikes landed in a UFC light heavyweight bout, 420 against Imavov. The most significant head strikes landed in a middleweight bout, 173 against Uriah Hall. The most significant strikes landed in a UFC middleweight bout, 173 against DDP in their first fight. He's tied with Chris Lieben and John Silva for the third fastest turnaround to win 2 fights, 14 days in 2020. He's tied for the third most split decision wins in UFC history with 4. He had the 2023 upset of the year against Israel Adesanya. He's the 2020 comeback fighter of the year, the 2023 most improved fighter. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 2-2 since 2024, and 12 of his 30 wins are via knockout. Now, the odds on this fight are pretty wild. I don't think they give Sean Strickland enough credit. I just hope we don't watch Chimaev lay on Sean for 5 rounds again like we did against DDP. Anything could happen in this fight. A lot of people have talked about how good Sean's takedown defense is and how hard he is to be held there. I have to favor Khamzat because I don't think Sean has enough power to push Chimaev backwards and have his way like he did against Anthony Hernandez. I think Khamzat meets Sean in the middle, pushes forward, and has success early. But the question is, can he keep that success and that pace as the fight goes deeper? If this fight starts the 3rd round, Sean Strickland has a real chance. I just don't think it happens. For that reason, I'm taking Khamzat Chimaev, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays. I can't wait. Khamzat, Sean, Tatsuro, Van, absolute barn burners. Volkov, Waldo is going to be fantastic. Sean Brady, Joaquin Buckley. How good is Joaquin Buckley? Can Sean Brady strike with the best of them? King Green and Jeremy Stevens, fight of the night potential of 2 longtime veterans. Another Ottaba Gautier fight. Yoel Alvarez, Yaroslav Amosov, my pick for fight of the night. Grant Dawson, Matushrin Becky, 2 teammates going at it. Jim Miller fights again. Roman Kopylov, Marco Tulio. That's my big dog pick of the card. How good is William Gomez? Pat Sabatini's been on a tear. Fantastic fight. The Susurkaev Santos fight is going to be bonkers. And Clayton Carpenter and Jose Ochoa to start the night off. From top to bottom, boy, am I going to have a fun little barbecue, grill and chill day. And that sets us up next week. We go back to the Meta Apex with a light card, but it is a loaded headliner. We get 7th ranked Arnold Allen and 12th ranked Melquizil Costa. That's episode 145. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week. Go as go.